Hello everyone, today I'll be showing you how to make a waterfall in Blender. This is the first part of a three-part tutorial series. Today we'll be creating the shader, and in the other parts we'll be creating the environment. So it will all be rendered in Eevee. Let's get started. Okay, stop. So I mentioned Node Wrangler a lot in this video, but I realized later that I didn't actually tell anyone how to get it. So basically all you do is you go to Edit, Preferences, and then you'll navigate to the Add-ons tab, and you can just search Node Wrangler and it should come up. Then you can just enable it, and then you just X off the tab, save your project, and it'll be with you forever. Right, continuing with the video. So first we're going to delete the default scene. Hold on, now we get delete the default scene because it should go to hell. We're going to add a plane, and we're going to scale it up on the x-axis by 2. Now with this plane, we're just going to be using it to preview our shader. So of course we're going to go into the shading tab. We're going to create a new material. Going to delete the principal BDC. We're going to add in an emission node. Plug that into the surface. So now we will just be using this for now to preview what our shader is doing. So then we're going to add in a noise texture. We're going to plug that into the strength. And then, if you have Node Wrangler installed, you can just press Ctrl T. I strongly advise you install Node Wrangler. It's very good. But for those of you that don't, you can add in a mapping node and plug that into the noise texture vector. And we're going to also add in a texture coordinate node. And we can plug this into the UV. And this will just make sure that our noise texture is using the UV of our object. So that will later come in very handy. And then we can just add in color ramp to control the contrast of our waterfall. So we can just turn it up or down. Right now it's not going to look like a waterfall because well, we haven't really done much yet. We're going to scale up the noise texture, and I'm going to add some detail and some roughness. So this will make, this part will make the details of our waterfall. So next, we're going to grab all of what we've made, except the emission and the material output, and copy it by pressing Shift D. And now, if we can preview this one here, it's the exact same thing. So what we need to do is we turn the scale down quite a bit, and we can turn the roughness down, and we don't really need much detail anymore. And so what this will do is it'll control the big drops of water, big swooshes of water. So then, to make this one interact with this node, we can move them down a bit, and we're going to Shift A, Math. And right now it'll say Add, but we're just going to plug those together. Then we're going to switch from Add to Multiply. And then you can see that we have our big noise here and our little noise. And we can enhance the effect by turning each one up. But that doesn't look very good, so we're not going to do that. Okay, so you may notice that we have quite a bit of a hard edge here, and we really don't want that. So what we're going to do is going to Shift A, Gradient Texture. And with this we're going to make a gradient from one side to the other. So we can show what this is doing by plugging it into the strength. We have our gradient from here to here. We do not want it there. So what we're going to do is going to get a gradient texture, and if you have Node Wrangler, Ctrl T. Otherwise, it's perfectly fine for you to just copy these nodes. So now what we can do is we can rotate it. I actually we need to check which axis it's on. It's a big deal, and it is on none of them. Hold on. Okay. I do this literally every time, and every time I forget what I did. Okay, so now we've set this one to 1 and this one to 90. And we can just plug the UV back in. So now we have one gradient, but if you can see, that's we don't really want it just on one side. Actually, I'm just going to shift this a little bit over, just maybe 1.01. I'll keep it up. And then we can just Control C and Control V, whichever you want. It really makes no difference if you use Shift D or Control C. And we can add in a note called invert, and this will invert what we have, and you can actually see what it's doing. Just plug it into there, and we can see we have now our gradient on that side versus if we plug this one in, it's on the other side. Now to connect them, same as before, we can actually just go here and copy it and plug this one into this one, and we can plug this one into the emission. And there we go, we have a nice gradient going from one side to the other side. And we can just add in a color wrap to control the contrast again, making our middle nice and bright. Yeah, we can just give it a save. Okay, so now what we need to do is we need to make this gradient control this waterfall. So how we can do that is we can copy our multiply node and multiply them together. And you can see it looks kind of okay. It's just kind of disappearing very like nice gradient, but that's not really what we want, because we just want less water to fall on one side versus the other side. And how I can do that is actually just delete one of our color ramps here and reconnect, and then we can remove, we can connect this one to here, and we can move our color ramp to the other side and put it in between the multiply and the emission. Now, if we turn up this slider, we can see we have little pieces forming. And if we can turn down this, we can use less on here, and we can make it a little wider. And now we kind of have something that looks a lot more like water than before. We can change the scale of our big drops, we can change the scale of our little drops, which is basically, it's all up to you. Okay, so now we have this. So how we can make this transparent is we can add in a transparent node, and we can do this simply by pressing Shift A, transparent. Now if you have node wrangler, you can control the Shift and Control Shift right click to connect them. Or if you don't have node wrangler, which you need to get, We can add in a mix shader, connect the two, put that into the surface, and now you see it looks exactly the same. But that's because we need to plug the color ramp into the factor, not into the emission. And now you may notice, well, it's completely white. So how we fix that is we simply go to the material properties, change the blend mode to alpha blend. And once it compiles, and we definitely have to switch these, we now have our waterfall. Right, so if you've gotten this far into the video, you've excused my bad recording skills. I apologize that this isn't the best Blender tutorial on YouTube. Again, I did try to get that add-on which shows which keys I'm pressing, but it was not working, so anyway, with that said, now we will animate the waterfall by using a function which we will put here. So first we're going to add in a value node. Oops, not volume info. Value. And then what this node is going to do is it has one number, which is right here, and then it'll output it. So it's a very simple node. But what we're going to do with it is we're going to set it to 0. And then we're going to make sure we're on the first frame. We're going to go back to the shading tab, and we're going to hover over the 0 and press I. And now this has keyframed the node. So now the node, when it's on frame 0, will be 0. So now what we can do is we can make sure that we're on frame 250, or whichever end frame you have, might be different. And then we can change it from 0 to 1 and press I again. So now what it'll do is it'll slowly switch between 0 and 1 over the duration of 250 frames. And now we have this. You obviously want some more control than just moving it 0 to 1, because then the waterfall will probably not even move very much. So what we can do is we can copy it, and we're going to copy it again. And the keyframes will just disappear, which is good. Don't worry about making them again. And we're going to add in a multiply node, math node, and switching it to multiply. I'm going to bring these down a bit. And then we're just going to put the this node that goes from 0 to 1 and this node together. And we can actually rename these now, because what this one is going to do is it's going to drive the motion of it, because it has the motion. So I'm going to call that one the driver, and I'm going to call that one small drops speed. So now we know that this one controls the small dropping of the waterfall, so our little noise. And then this one, we're just going to copy the multiply node. It's going to control the speed of our fast falling ones. Okay, so now how do we get this to move it? So what we can do is we can add in, move these back a bit, a combine XYZ node. What this will do is it'll take all of these three values and turn it into a vector, which is basically the same as this. So we can just plug our value into the Y for now, and move this over here, and we can grab that and throw it into the location. Now, if we press play, if it's going the wrong way, just switch it, and that'll change the direction. So there, now we have our motion And we're just going to quickly do the same thing for the big drops. Okay, so now you may notice that it's starting slow and then speeding up and then slowing down. And that's actually, for most things in Blender, that's something that you want, but not for this. So what we can do is we can have our plane selected and our driver node selected. We can go into the tab called Animation. Then we don't need to do this, but we go into the graph editor. So now you can, I'm just going to press normalize. So now we can see that we have our keyframes here. So what these interpolators are doing is they're showing Blender how we want it to move. So right now it's starting at 0, and we have it kind of out a bit, so it's speeding up, and then it's slowing down again, so it slowly comes to a stop. And yeah, so if you're moving objects and stuff, that's important. But since we don't want that, we can press T, and we can switch the interpolation mode to linear. Then now we don't have those control. It just goes from 0 to 1. And we can go back to the shading tab, and we can give it a whirl. Okay. Now it goes at 1 speed. And if we want it to go faster, you can just turn these up quite a bit, probably more like 10 and 20. And now we have a really fast flowing waterfall. So now basically you can just tweak around with your noise and everything, just basically just get how you want it to be. It's different for everybody. Alright, so with that said, it is a plane. There is no volume to it. That's not what we want. So we can go actually to the layout tab, because we won't need the shader anymore for this one. A little bit. We're going to rotate it on the Y 90 degrees. So that's vertical, and since we scaled it up by 2, we can just press G, Z, 2, and then it'll bring it up 2 meters. Oh, and it's upside down. Don't do the same thing as me there. There. Now it's not upside down. Okay, so now to make it 3D, what we're going to do is we're going to duplicate the plane by pressing Shift D, X, and then it'll move it back a bit. Shift D, X, and then maybe about 5 times. But if you're smart, you can copy all 3 of them and bring them back, and it makes no difference, but it takes a lot shorter. So now we have this very, very trippy result, which is not what we want. This looks nothing like a waterfall. Well, kind of, but like if you're on drugs. So what we can do is select all of them, go to UV editing, and then they'll all be in edit mode. But basically, if you not selected all of them, it won't be. But anyway, so you select one face, GX, and move it a random amount. Select the next face, GX, move it a random amount. And basically just do the exact same thing to all of them, but make sure that they're all in different places. If they're in the same place, then it'll have the same noise pattern as the one in front of it, and it'll give you that trippy result we had before. So now, with that done, we've told Blender to take different noise patterns for each plane. And we should have something that looks like this, which you can see is sort of C3D. If you want to emphasize the effect, you can scale it on the x-axis, and it'll be a little more. It'll be kind of more like a cube every time. It's better to just add in more planes too. So, but if you're not happy with it because it looks like it's too, like it looks like it's one solid piece, well then you can just go back to the shading, and you can change it there to be. You can change your color ramp over with this color ramp, and it'll give it make it easier to see the separate pieces. I'm just going to scale it back on the X because I didn't like it that far. Yeah, that'll make it a bit thinner. If you want it to be thick again, you can scale it on the Y. So yeah, that's basically our waterfall. I'm just going to slow it down a bit. That's probably way too high. yeah. So, thank you for watching my first tutorial. The next 2 parts should be up within this week. If they're not, something probably happened, but yeah, here's the waterfall.